7-generation design, planning for 7 generations. That's what we're getting at in good permaculture design. So let's start right into it with food. This is a very common scene, especially across Michigan. I think it's a beautiful scene when we're talking about our farmland, one that's a part of my childhood. But unfortunately, there's some bad news that goes along with this when we're talking about commercial farming and industrial agriculture, not just in Michigan, but across the country. These systems are primarily monocrop. People know what I mean when I'm talking about monocrop. Usually year after year, corn, soy, year after year. That's not how nature works. Nature likes biodiversity. Commercial farming is heavily petrochemical based, extremely energy and resource intensive, and the government keeps propping up these systems with heavy, heavy subsidies. History has shown us where these systems leave us with loss of topsoil, loss of species and biodiversity, and again, we talked about topsoil being the foundation of human life. Well, these systems are depleting it at record rates. So permaculture solutions. We have this notion of food forests. What do I mean by that? It's really about the transition from annual to perennial-based systems. We want to look to nature again and mimic a forest system. To my garden friends out there, when you have your garden thriving in the summertime, can you take a 2.5-week vacation to get away from your garden? You can't do it. In a permaculture designed food forest, it mimics a natural forest. That woodland out there, you can leave it alone for 2.5 weeks, and when you come back, it'll be a-okay. It'll be taking care of itself. Those are the kinds of systems that we want to mimic and design when we're talking about food regeneration. So we were talking about these permaculture designed sustainable food systems. And really what's endemic in a lot of these food forests is this notion of stacking functions. Okay? And when we're talking about stacking functions, we're talking about plants that work in harmony together to benefit the whole. So in these permaculture-based food forest systems, we can grow our edibles, medicinals, fuels, fibers, filters, nitrogen fixers, accumulators, attractors of beneficial insects and animals. We can literally grow all the food we need, all the fuel we need, and we can do this at the same time while doing a lot of bioremediation. There's amazing, amazing work being done out there cleaning up the mess that we've made using plants. People here heard of a guy named Paul Stamets. Paul Stamets is an amazing mycologist who's using mushrooms to fix a lot of the damage that we've done. If you get a chance to see his book entitled Mycelium Running, that book will just blow you away. It's like you get done with that book and you're just like, give this guy $1 billion and get out of his way, because he's going to fix what we need. Okay, so the basic tenets of this permanent agriculture. And remember, these are the systems that we initially want to install, and then we can apply them to every other aspect of our life. But the main tenets are they're interconnected perennial systems. We don't use petrochemicals. We build topsoil and fertility. We want to hold water on the landscape. That's huge to prevent topsoil erosion. We can sequester carbon, and again, using these perennial-based systems, our yields increase for 30 years and then continue to produce for untold generations. So I talked about multi-dimensional design, and what did I mean by that? Well, there's sort of a new wave of permaculture designers emerging all over the world, and we're using these aspects of permanent agriculture and applying it to every other aspect of our lives. Still using the same principles, still using the same ethics, but we're starting to see permaculture design emerge in energy systems, water systems, transportation systems, building systems, and waste systems. So let's talk about energy real quick. As the two speakers before me pointed out, there really are no silver bullets, and we can again point to nature for an example of that. Banana trees can't grow everywhere. In the same fashion, solar is not going to work everywhere. Wind is not going to work everywhere. And really the best kind of renewable energy that's out there is conservation first. Before we want to install any kind of renewable energy system, we want to make sure we do the appropriate audits and get our base loads down. For great studies on how renewables might replace the current petrochemical-based or petrocarbon-based systems that we have now, I really recommend going to postcarbon.org. A lot of fantastic studies that are done there, really worth checking out. But when we're talking about permaculture design in terms of energy, I want to talk about this concept of cogeneration. Really, again, this touches on that agriculture process of stacking functions, meaning we have more than one use in a system. Okay, so when we have a system like this is a CHP system, stands for combined heat and power, where typically in an engine-driven electrical system, It's producing energy for our needs, but what else is that engine producing? Heat, lots of heat. Why can't we store and capture that heat and use it when we want it? We absolutely can do that. This is, again, an example of a small-scale, community-based system, but these kinds of CHP plants are popping up all over Europe now, and it's only a matter of time before we start seeing them here. Another model of permaculture in energy. Again, our agricultural principles from farm to table. Everybody familiar with the CSA, community-supported agriculture? Well, we're now starting to see models emerge of CSEs, which is community-supported energy. In Ann Arbor, where I'm from, we have a conglomerate called Exceed Energy, which is folks coming together to donate shares, infrastructure investment into installing highly visible renewable energy systems throughout Ann Arbor. The proceeds go into an energy bank and are then used to install more renewable energy systems. And the goal really ultimately here is to have community-funded and community-owned energy. And that's what we're talking about. That's the name of the game here, is small-scale, community-based solutions. Moving on to water. We've been talking about peak oil, but I promise you in the months and years ahead, we will be talking about peak water. It's here as well. Permaculture-based solutions for water. Again, we want to talk about water catchment and storage. This design here on the left, this is what's known as a swale system. And swales are unbelievably easy and simple. They're just ditches that are dug on contour. And when these are used in large-scale agriculture or even small-scale backyard gardening, what they do is every time it rains, these swales fill up, full of water, and they replenish the water table underneath them. Okay, so we harvest water. We passively harvest water. We don't need to use city water coming from thousands of miles away. I just read about some new pipeline in Alaska that's going to be pumping water to China. Scary, very scary. We don't need to do that. Again, the key is holding water on the land. We want to minimize runoff into sewers and streams, slowing water down. Again, preventing that erosion. Topsoil is so key. For really, really great examples of passive water harvesting, I really point to a guy named Brad Lancaster who's doing a lot of great work down in Arizona with that sort of typical hard red clay cracked. He is just creating these oases down there that are really something to behold. For small-scale homeowner use, we want to start looking at gray water systems. Somebody please explain to me why on earth we use fresh water to flush our toilets. That doesn't make any sense. We can design a better system. Gray water is typically the water that's used in your laundry, dishwashing, and a lot of times bathing. We can recycle that water throughout a home system, use it multiple times, and then at the end of that system even we could put it out towards irrigation in our garden systems. Building. Permaculture design examples in building. A lot of attention and energy is being placed on LEED. I think LEED is great. It's a step in the right direction. But I would also ask you to check out an organization called the Living Building Institute because what they are doing is blowing LEED out of the water. Talk about net zero energy buildings. Well, what about, you know, just net zero everything? Water, food production, waste. Really what's getting a lot of prominence is this notion of natural building using straw bale, earth, and cob. We're going to see a lot of talk about hempcrete as a very viable structure. Great designs coming out of Germany in the passive house systems. Super insulated homes that use the sun's passive solar heating to heat their house and thermal mass to heat it during the nighttime. Great designs there. We're seeing a big resurgence in geodesic domes, very efficient models. And if we had time, I'd be playing for you a video about earthships. Earthships are these amazing designs coming from an architect named Michael Reynolds, but they really encompass and encapsulate all these systems when we're talking about food, energy, water, building, transportation, and waste systems, all in one finite system, working interconnected. There's no garbage, there's no trash. The output of one system becomes the input of another. Stumbling through here, transportation can be a contentious topic where I'm from, near the Motor City. But let's talk about that a little bit. Who here knows that Henry Ford designed his Model T to be not only built from, but burn off of hemp, ethanol? He sure did. A lot of money was spent to make sure that you don't know that, and a lot of money was spent to make sure that he burned his cars using petroleum. That's all in the past. We can design new systems now. But a great quote by Henry Ford talking about why use up the forests which were centuries in the making and the mines which required ages to lay down if we can get the equivalent forest and mineral products in the annual growth of hemp fields. Something to think about there. A great book on ethanol is Alcohol Can Be a Gas by David Bloom. It's hundreds and hundreds of pages, but an excellent read. Great new system coming out of California called eFuel, world's first portable micro ethanol refinery system. This company did an amazing job when they launched this product, is they teamed up with Sierra Nevada Brewing, and they hooked up the output of Sierra Nevada's brewing company into 10 of these eFuel systems. And overnight, they took Sierra Nevada's main executive and transport divisions off the oil grid, and they started producing their own fuel there on site. These systems are really great. We're going to start hearing a lot more about these because they're home-based. You have a gas, you have a fuel pump at home. Really great. That partnership with Sierra Nevada and eFuel really starts to demonstrate this notion of financial permaculture, which is how can the waste of one system or one company start to create new relationships and new working relationships with other companies. Avego, this is a system coming out of Ireland. This is real-time GPS phone-based expansion. I gave this presentation in Saginaw a couple months ago, and there was a 15-year-old kid in the audience, and he saw what I was talking about with Avego, and he goes, "You mean like organized hitchhiking?" And that's exactly what it is we have the technologies where you can hop on your Avego system, see who's in your network, see who's driving where you need to go. There's predetermined pickup points. You meet them there. Boom, done. So my permaculture design mind starts thinking, what if we have communities that have e-fuel systems? Everybody invests in a couple of those combined with an Avego-type system. Now we've got some real solutions that are starting to emerge. Waste, permaculture design solutions as exemplified in waste. A lot of the cultural shift that we're talking about, I'm sure I don't need to spend too much time educating this crowd on this, talking about buying local, growing your own. These are a lot of the challenges, though, that we're talking about, this cultural shift towards a sustainable economy. But let's talk about the other waste that comes from humans. If this is an uncomfortable topic for you, I really recommend this book that I used to read to my fourth graders called Everyone Poops. Really great technology coming out in the form of composting toilets. That's more of a homeowner type scale. What we're seeing on a community-based level is this notion of community biomethane, where these systems are all collected into a power-generating anaerobic digester. Very promising. There's a huge conference going on Michigan bio-waste on December 7th in Lansing. I suggest you check out if you get a chance. And then the final one is the C word, and that is community. And what we're starting to find out, permaculturists all over the world, is that when small groups of people come together and start addressing any one of these issues, food, energy, water, building, transportation, or waste, the inevitable byproduct is community. When people come together to start addressing their food issues, they spend time together, they eat together, they form a community, and that's what's sorely lacking in so many of our systems these days is community. I'm closing up here, final slides. Permaculture design and practice. This is actually my backyard in Ann Arbor. Big earth oven we bake in all year long. There's a water catchment system coming off that earth oven. Hoop house in the backyard that we grow food in all year long. Back to the left side, behind the earth oven, is a perennial food forest that's just started out. We've got compost systems and vermicompost systems using worms. But you can see where I live there, pretty dense suburban urban neighborhood, lots of houses around me. These systems are absolutely viable. Folks can step up and start taking responsibility for their food, for their energy production, and we can create viable communities in the meantime. This is an example of a permaculture design class I taught in Detroit, installing hoop houses there, reinvigorating the local food system in Detroit. This was an earth oven that we designed in Detroit as well. This was all made out of recycled materials that we found from abandoned houses. Does anybody know what recycled concrete is called? Urbanite, that's right. Urbanite is a great building resource. This is another one of our design projects up on Beaver Island, Michigan. Enormous food forest. Lake Michigan is in the background there. Hopefully that's where I'm going to get married next year. But really these are just wonderful places to be around. They vibrate at a different frequency. And I think that's a lot of what we're talking about here when we're talking about this cultural shift. What are we going to do with our mental energy? Where are we going to put it? Are we going to put it on unsustainable systems and iPods that are obsolete after 4 years? Or are we going to put it on 7th-generation design and systems that will provide for us in perpetuity? So we can be conscious of the energy that surrounds us, and we can be conscious of how we use our energy. And the big question is, will you be a consumer or will you be a producer? And to finish up with a quote from my man Gandhi, "To forget how to dig the earth and tend the soil is to forget ourselves." I apologize for the technical difficulties. Thank you very much for your time. Enjoy the conference.